Good evening. We're back with more Marvel Champions, and tonight will be Iron Man versus Rhino on Expert difficulty using the standard modular set. Expert difficulty means you face phase 2 and 3 of Rhino instead of 1 and 2, and you also add 3 expert cards to the usual deck. If you haven't seen Iron Man played before, he's a slow building hero, not the easiest to play in solo play. In fact, I probably found him to be, at least with the core set cards alone, I found him to be the weakest of the heroes in solo play. But nonetheless, he's still very playable, at least against Rhino. So we'll get the decks shuffled up here and draw the hand. Iron Man starts with 6 cards. Now what I'm looking for here in the opening hand as Iron Man is basically a way to clear out that break-in and take-in side quest. So let's go back and take a look at that hand, and I'll say why I didn't like it very much. First of all, I'm looking for, well, either a way to clear out the side quest, which means dealing with the 3 threat on it before the villain's first phase when he will get 2 encounter cards, or I'm looking for upgrades potentially. And as you can see in this hand, there is no way to deal with threat really, except for Heroic Intuition. Now Heroic Intuition could do it. I could add 1 threat, flip over to Iron Man, and then deal with the 3 threat. But then I'd be an Iron Man and my hand size would only be 1, because there's no upgrades in this hand. So that's not really going to be good enough, which is why I chose to mulligan the entire thing, looking for preferably a way to deal with the threat and upgrades. And I did get 2 upgrades, the Mark V helmet and armor, as well as for Justice. So my first action is using Tony's Futurist ability to look at the top 3 cards of the deck and discard 2, and the one that I choose to keep is Energy for its resource generation. So I go ahead and use the energy to pay for Justice, which removes the 3 threat from the scheme and discards it, the side quest. Now I'm thinking about what I'm going to do here, which of these cards I want to discard to pay for my upgrade. So I decide I'm going to discard War Machine, and then I change my mind and I think, okay, I'll discard the Mark V armor and I'll get out the Helicarrier, and then I'll exhaust the Helicarrier to pay for the Mark V helmet. So I have to chuck War Machine and the Mark V armor in order to do that. I'm not super happy about that, but it's acceptable. Helicarrier helps me to get my future cards out faster. You can exhaust it each turn to make what card 1 resource cheaper. And the Mark V helmet is a good cheap upgrade which allows you to remove threat every round. So I draw my hand. I choose to stay in alter ego form. The villain puts 1 threat on the main scheme at the beginning of the turn, and now he's going to scheme for 2. So that puts the scheme up to 3. At this point I decide to move things over because the large cards were blocking my view of the threat on the main quest, and I think it's more viewable or easier to see when I do it that way. So we got our encounter card after the villain schemes, and it is a side scheme, Crowd Control. It's a hazard side scheme, which means you have to clear it before you can clear anything off the main quest. So I go ahead and move into the player phase and use Tony's Futurist ability, discarding 3 cards, and I'm thinking about which one I want to keep now, and I decide on Pepper Potts. I can combine her with Helicarrier to get some nice resource generation going, make things cheaper. That's what I decide to do. And we go ahead and exhaust Helicarrier and Pepper Potts to get the resources necessary to play Powered Gauntlets. And now I'm going to flip over to Iron Man, and we're going to go ahead and thwart with Iron Man to get rid of the side quest, and we'll exhaust the Mark V helmet to remove 1 threat. We'll use the Powered Gauntlets to deal 1 damage. And I decide, now I'm trying to decide if I'm going to chuck cards or keep them. I'm only going to have a hand size of 3 because I only have 2 upgrades plus Iron Man. He has a hand size of 1 plus 1 for each upgrade. So early in the game, his hand size can be a bit limited, which is one of the reasons why he's hard to play in solo. And that hand is absolute garbage. In the villain's phase, he's going to increase threat by 1, which is standard, and then he's going to attack, and I think I decide here that I'm going to face tank it. And so I face take 3 damage. The boost was a dud for the villain, and now the encounter card is another attack from the villain. So this one I decide to face tank again, and that drops me down to 1 HP, but it doesn't kill me. I'm only mostly dead. Now I'm thinking about what I want to do with my turn. I'm gonna have to flip back over to alter ego so I can heal. So I use the helmet to remove threat, use the gauntlet to do a little damage. Flip back over to Tony and use his futurist ability. And I think I decide I'm going to hang on to Avengers Mansion here. A lot of times I find that card too expensive to play. But with Iron Man, you kind of need the card draw early. So I go ahead and then recover with Tony. Then I use the Helicarrier and Pepper and chuck the 2 great responsibilities to grab the Avengers Mansion, which I use to draw a card. Pointlessly, because I'm just about to draw up to my hand size anyway. But it's possible I would have drawn something that I could play there. I don't actually know if there's anything in my deck. Maybe a Rocket Boots or something like that. I could have chucked the Power of Justice for a surveillance team, so it wasn't entirely pointless. So we go ahead and add the threat to the main quest and the villain schemes. So the main quest is up to 5 now. And the encounter card adds a stun to Tony Stark. So the next time I want to scheme, I'll have to discard the confused first. And on my turn, I'm definitely going to want to use Futurist, and there's the Arc Reactor, the best of the upgrades in my opinion. And we'll use Helicarrier and Pepper Pots together. Well, it's always good to draw a card first to see if there's going to be a better play, but use Helicarrier and Pepper to get out our Arc Reactor. We can chuck the Haymaker and the 2 resource card from Justice, which I've just now forgotten the name of, to get out Jessica Jones, and chuck the Strength to generate 2 resources for Surveillance Team, and then use 1 Rocket Boots to pay for the other. So now we're in reasonable shape. Tony's health is still looking a little rough, so probably spend another turn in, well, use at least his action to heal here. And then we'll go ahead and use the helmet, take off 1 threat, use the surveillance team, take off 1 threat, use the gauntlets. Of course, none of this can actually be done until I flip over to alter hero form, but I simply forgot to make that flip. Or maybe I didn't forget, maybe I had done it already, I didn't notice. But you do have to flip over before you can use those hero actions. So we use the Arc Reactor, so we get another action on Iron Man. Use Jessica Jones, and we're just trying to deal with the threat on the break-in. Iron Man did not, wasn't able to remove any threat because he had the confused on him, so he had to use his action just to get rid of that. And now I run out of cards in my deck, so I've got to deal myself an encounter card before I continue drawing my hand, and that encounter card is an attack, which knocks my health back down to 4, which is unfortunate, but not that big of a deal. I'll have Jessica Jones to tank an attack if I need her. And I continue to draw up to my hand size, which is now 5 thanks to my 4 upgrades. We got a threat on the main scheme, which I think I remember in just a moment. And we've got an attack going on Jessica Jones, using her as a jump blocker. It's not ideal since she could have attacked 1 more time or thwarted 1 more time, but it's necessary because of that extra attack the villain did. So we're exhausting Iron Man here. Not too big of a deal because of the Arc Reactor, and that card does Surge. into an upgrade, an armored Rhino suit for Rhino, which is not too big a deal. There's definitely worse things that could have happened. My board setup is pretty good here. I'd say this is a pretty stable board state. So we're going to go ahead and draw a card with Avengers Mansion, which I might have forgotten to do once, I'm not really sure. We'll get out the second rocket boots, use For Justice to take care of that threat. I do have Pepper and Helicarrier, so I can play Mockingbird. And I'll just keep the rocket boots, the second rocket boots, in hand for the future. When Mockingbird enters play, she stuns the Rhino, so just peck away at those tokens on the armored Rhino suit. And well, there's no use for the Mark V helmet or surveillance team, so I've got an overkill of threat reduction now. I probably didn't even need to use For Justice. I was probably overly conservative there, but that's alright. Get into the villain's turn. He's going to get rid of that stun, get a threat on the main quest, and the encounter card is going to be Shadow of the Past, so that's going to bring the Whiplash enemy into play, along with the corresponding side quest, which is Imminent Overload. And that is an acceleration token for the main quest while it's in play. We've got Whiplash into play. And we've got some cards to shuffle into the encounter deck. So, that was bad, but that's alright. We can deal with it. Got a lot of threat reduction thanks to running Justice. So I'm thinking about which things I want to do here. I'm going to go ahead and go airborne with the rocket boots. I decide I'm going to use rocket boots to do that. Maybe I should have used Stark. Well, I think my plan here was to use Stark Tower to get those rocket boots back. So the Mark V helmet will take one off the Imminent Overload and one off the break-in, since we've got the aerial trait going on. And then I can go ahead and thwart with Iron Man to get rid of the other two and clear the side quest. Now I'm going to use most likely energy to, well, can't forget about Helicarrier and Pepper. We'll use Supersonic Punch to deal with Whiplash. And that's going to deal 1 damage to Iron Man in the process, but no big deal. Go ahead and use energy to play Stark Tower. And then we'll use Stark Tower to get back the rocket boots and discard Haymaker to pay for that. So, very stable board state. Didn't really have much of a problem with dealing with Whiplash there. And now it's just a matter of time until Rhino's dealt with. So we ping away his armor there and use the arc reactor to get an extra attack. Though I think in this case I decide I'm going to ready up Iron Man and then flip over to Alter Ego, use his Futurist ability, and then use his action to heal, since he's only at 3 HP. And the card I decide to keep from Futurist is Daredevil. And then we go ahead and draw up to the hand size of 6. I didn't use Mockingbird to do anything there. I think I simply forgot. So 1 threat on the main scheme, and the scheme from the villain adds 3 more, so it's up to 4. And then the encounter card is a blank Surge because we're in Alter Ego form, and then Rhino heals for 3. Still in phase 2 and he's at full HP, but my board setup is so good that I have little doubt at this point that I'm going to win. I go ahead and heal with Tony Stark and then flip over to Iron Man. Use the arc reactor to ready him. And go ahead and draw a card. I think I forgot to use his futurist ability there. That's alright. And I'm just discarding cards along with strength there to pay for Daredevil. And we'll go ahead and use Mark V helmet. Daredevil thwarts. He deals 1 damage when he thwarts. And Mockingbird is going to thwart. I don't know why I didn't use Surveillance Team there. I could have saved an action on Mockingbird, but oh well, I think I simply forgot about it. And then I'm going to chuck some cards to get War Machine on the table. Did I pay for that with enough cards? Let me check. Oh yeah, I did. I just only had to discard 2 because I was using Pepper and Helicarrier there. So we get War Machine out, and we've got an Embarrassment of Riches now. There is not going to be any problem defeating the boss from this state. I exhaust Dark Tower. Wasn't actually sure at this point if there were any upgrades in my discard pile, and there aren't, but I didn't see a reason not to take a look. I think you can just look through your discard pile for free though, right? I actually wasn't sure about that, so I exhausted this Dark Tower to do it. I can now draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a standard hand size, which is great. Going to use Mockingbird as a chump blocker for Rhino's attack. I haven't put the threat yet on the break-in, but I'll remember to in a moment. Not that it would matter either way. And the encounter card is going to be a +1 attack for Rhino. If I had remembered to put the threat on the main quest, I could simply remove it again with the Mark V helmet. So, I'm there, I remember it, and then I just take it right off again. We're probably going to go ahead and get powered gauntlets out here for sure. And then likely go airborne, which is why I discarded Great Responsibility and exhausted rocket boots in order to go airborne, so that I can probably move into phase 3 here. So I deal 2 damage each with the powered gauntlets, thanks to being aerial. 2 damage with War Machine, 2 damage with Daredevil. And then we'll go ahead and use Genius to pay for Haymaker to knock Rhino into phase 3. He starts with a tough card and he stuns Iron Man when he is revealed. So we're going to exhaust Iron Man to get rid of the stun, and then ready him with Arc Reactor and exhaust him again to attack and remove the toughness. And then probably just discard for Justice and the Surveillance Team to make room for other things. And I need to deal myself an encounter card because I've gone through the deck again. Rhino's going to scheme for 2, no big deal. And then we're on to the villain turn. And we add another threat to the scheme, and then he's going to attack. Use Daredevil as a chump blocker here. And he attacks for 8 actually. Yikes. There, I remembered the threat I should have put on there, and the encounter card is going to be Sandman, which I will probably ignore because at this point I think I have the damage to just kill Rhino, but we'll see. Got Repulsor Blast, I have Haymaker, I can go aerial there with Great Responsibility. So we got 2 for Nick Fury can deal 4 when he enters play, and then another 2 with his attack. Should be able to just end the fight right here. So I'm just counting everything and making sure I have enough resources and damage to pay for everything, and I discover that I do. I discarded 2 cards to pay for something, and then I changed my mind about what I wanted to do there. So we'll go ahead and get started, and gonna pay 4 to get Nick Fury out. Deals 4 damage when he enters play. And he's gonna deal 2 with his attack. War Machine will do the same. Forget to add a damage there, but it doesn't matter because the game's ending right now. Powered Gauntlets are 2 each. And then I have Iron Man for 1, and then I can Haymaker to end it. Arc Reactor, Iron Man again. And then discard the final 2 cards in my hand and play Haymaker to end the fight. So I did a lot of little things out of order there. I may have made mistakes, I'm not sure, but of course the goal isn't... We are trying to play as good as possible, but mistakes are going to happen. The main goal, the thing that I love about card games, is testing out the deck, the strength of different decks against different challenges. And so we wanted to see if Iron Man can beat Rhino on expert difficulty, and he definitely can. You probably will take a loss playing solo Iron Man against expert Rhino from time to time if you get a bad draw. If you draw your opening hand and then mulligan and still don't get away to clear the 3 threat off of Breaking and Taken at the very start of the game, you're going to have a bad time, because the villain's going to get 2 encounter cards, and that can stack up and be a problem very quickly. But playing Justice Iron Man mostly mitigates that, because Justice has 4 Justice, and then you also have the Mark V helmet. If you draw the Mark V helmet, you can use Iron Man and the Mark V helmet to clear it. If you draw Arc Reactor, you can use that and Iron Man to clear. So that's what you're going to want to look for in the beginning when you mulligan against expert Rhino, is Arc Reactor or Mark V helmet or 4 Justice, if you're playing Justice Iron Man, in order to deal with Breaking and Taken. Now, I tried other variations of Iron Man against this. Protection Iron Man I didn't think was that good against this challenge. Aggression Iron Man, I mean, they all have the same problem, which is getting rid of Breaking and Taken early. And Justice adds those extra tools for doing that. The others don't really, and so they can struggle if you don't find Mark V helmet or Arc Reactor in your opening hand. The board can become a problem in a hurry. And Iron Man has relatively few hit points when he starts out the game. It's only 9, which that may be the lowest of any of the core set heroes, I'm not sure. So he sometimes can't take 2 attacks. If Rhino gets he attacks for 3 in phase 2, and if he gets 2 boost for 2 cards, then he kills you. So if you're like in hero form early and he gets 2 encounter cards because you didn't manage to clear Breaking and Taken, and he gets like an attack and then an extra attack, you could just die. Iron Man only defends for 1. So yeah, you can just die in that scenario, where he attacks for 5 each time. One time you block 1, so you take 4. And the second time you can't block because you're already exhausted, and you take 5 and you're done. So I do think Justice Iron Man is the way to go for this quest. And thank you for watching.